20-minute recap of the stream tournament game number 4 with myself, Matt, and Don, who's here with me. Everybody say, or Don, say hi.
Hey.
Awesome. So we're just gonna talk about our game, give you a quick little recap here. So we actually filmed deployment this time around, and I think you can see Don early in the game put some, what are those called? Blight haulers?
Blight haulers and greater blight drones.
Yeah, up here in the top left corner. And so I kind of at this point of the game, I sort of got the impression that he was loading on your left side of the board. And so what you'll see is most of my deployment is going to be center and to the right. My idea was that I would, right, like I'd use my speed to come up here on the right side of the board, and I would use his sort of somewhat limited range with the Meltas to dodge out of the Melta range, right? Because he has a ton of multi-Meltas here, which are like murder to my Demacheron list. And at this point, I'm kind of thinking most of the multi-Meltas, their threat range is going to end kind of middle board, right here. And so you can see as I deploy, most of my points end up on the bottom right. The one exception to that, and kind of I think the mistake that I made here in deployment, is my Swarm Lord, and I honestly couldn't tell you why that's the case, ends up down here on the bottom left. And I mean, just honest to God, I don't know exactly why I did that. I thought that it was maybe the safest place to hide him, given that everything behind this big tall line of sight blocking cliff thing was getting pretty full. And throughout the middle here, there's not really anything that would have blocked the Swarm Lord from his shooting, which was pretty intense. So I don't know, we're on to turn 1 here, Don. What was going on in your mind at this point in the game?
So in my mind, what I was planning on doing was basically going up through this way to try to clear you out, and then work my way over here where you basically stuck at a corner. However, as we'll see later on, this stuff just didn't do much aside from the flavor scroll in this first turn, which did amazing things.
Yeah, so I was kind of shocked by that. I kind of figured, I know the vehicle lists you bring are like really shooty, right? I've played you several times against those lists, and so I was anticipating you killing this Demacheron, like one of the Demacherons, but for any of you who watched the full game, Don like levels up his Plague Burst Crawler with some strats, and the very first Plague Burst Crawler does like 14 wounds or something silly on the Demacheron, and then he's still got the rest of his army to shoot, and he ends up putting this next Demacheron down to 11 wounds, which kind of put the fear of God in me a little bit. I didn't really know what to do at that point. Luckily, the second Demacheron survived and was close enough to his top bracket that I could heal him, and then I could get at least a turn of kind of distraction out of him, sending him up to just kind of wreak havoc with the defilers and this kind of section of the board here, which is what you'll see me start doing here in a second.
Yeah. Meanwhile, so just keep in mind, all that shooting was pretty much just from the Flavor Crawler and these guys killing that, whereas the rest of my army over here just lit up and almost completely wiped out the Hormigaunt squad back there.
Yeah, I think it did wipe it out.
I think so. Just a little bit left because it ran up here and grabbed that objective from me.
Yeah, you're correct there. So you killed 16 out of 20 Hormigaunts. I think you can see here, I had 4 left out of this big 20 unit that I had hidden, and I used it to run up here and deny an objective for a turn, which I think was useful. My plan in putting them down in this corner was that if I ended up going first, and this is another advantage of having the Swarm Lord in this area, is that if I went first, I could double move them and place a roadblock like right across here and keep most of Don's multi-meltas boxed in for a turn. Don and I were talking about this, and he doesn't seem to think that would have been particularly useful. That seems like a good play to me, because now the threat range of your multi-meltas is like here instead of the middle of the board, And that feels like a big win to me. I don't know. What do you think?
So the thing is, like, on turn 1, my multi-meltas had no targets anyways. They were shooting them anyways. So if you would have just thrown them up, all that would have done is given me a little extra movement, because everything would have charged into like the 1 or 2 gaunts remaining and got an extra 6 inches to just flood up, you know, this way. Because the only things I shot at your Diamashtrons were the crack missiles anyways, which would have still been able to fire. Because that 48 inches is like, you know, not that far.
Yes, the board.
That far.
It's the board. Yeah.
It's really hard to hide from those. And I don't know what blocking me off while I'm still holding an objective would have really done.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, and maybe I'm wrong here, in my mind, the crack missiles I can eat, the defilers I can eat, and I was apparently wrong about the plague burst crawler. The plague burst crawler I thought I could eat as well, but it.
Yeah, that disgusting force, making those 3 damage, and then the entropies both hit, both wounded, both rolled 3 on their 3 plus D3 damage, and it just wreaked havoc on that Dimashron.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, it was rough. I think most of my game plan, and I was talking to a friend of mine who played Tyranids before the game. Most of my game plan was avoiding all of these multi-meltas, right? Because those they'll rip down the Dimashrons, they'll rip down the Hive Tyrant, they'll rip down Swarmlord, right? Like that I mean, and those are important pieces to my army. Like that's actually most of the army. And so most of my game plan was to just stay out of multi-melta range. And when you deployed up here in the corner, I felt like that gave me an opportunity to do it. And if I could put in move blocking obstacles up here, that all the better. But maybe that's not as advantageous as I thought.
Yeah. So as you guys can kind of see, I'm still trying to like do my plan here of coming around and just trying to wipe out this stuff, forcing him to go this way. I was feeling like turning this into a hammer and anvil deployment because I just outrange all this stuff back here with all those 36 inches. So I was hoping to do that, and I was hoping that these guys would last long enough to be a problem. There's a plague patrol is still there. He's just, you can kind of see him, he's right there. But yeah, they still did work. It just, I played smart for the first couple rounds, and then you'll see me start to flunder here in a little bit.
Yeah, so that plan worked, right? So you'll see. So if Don's plan was to come down and to your right and force me to go up on the right hand side, that's literally exactly what ended up happening. But to Don's point, I think the first 2 turns, my Exocrine down here and my Hive Guard didn't do very much. But starting around turn 3, the Exocrine started lighting stuff up, and I got this Hive Tyrant over far on the right hand side, and my Neurothrope came up this way too. And between the 2 of them, it's something like 10 mortal wounds a turn, right? Because they're throwing out 2 smites and a Psychic Scream. And between that and the Exocrine's shooting, I just ended up clearing out all the stuff here on the top right. Quicker than I thought I was going to. It was really like within definitely 2 turns, but maybe even mostly 1 turn. I killed the Plague Burst Crawler, Typhus, and one of these Defilers was really weak, but
you got all 4 of them in that turn.
I think so, honestly. Yeah.
And so this board was also built in such a way that, I mean, I moved it around a little bit, so I was still maintaining the spirit of it. But like these guys couldn't get through here, so it made it really difficult for me to try to get back around to get over here to do things. So the amount of mobility that I got slowed by was pretty significant for the Blight Haulers. And you'll see that in the later rounds. I couldn't get to where I needed to get to keep lighting things up.
So do you think this board, I think this is fairly representative of like a lot of the frontline gaming boards that we play on. Do you think that it is, what's different about this one than like when we go to the LVO or any of the other tournaments that slowed you down?
So most tournaments do have like a general rule of thumb that each piece of terrain needs to be at least 3 inches away from another piece of terrain.
Okay.
That's like a rule of thumb.
Okay.
So to give you an idea, when I came in, this board was, there was a crate, there was a crate. So like these guys couldn't move in at all. So I just tried to make it so that it still was kind of along those lines, but they could still move through things. But yeah, it's just, if it's too, it's not working for me.
Okay. So I think maybe the only places that it wasn't 3 inches apart, this right here might have been less than 3. And it looks like maybe this was less than 3. So your defilers did come down through this area.
Yep.
And everything else here I think was pretty maneuverable.
Yeah. It's just because I was so far over on this side, I just couldn't. I did not move appropriately to get out of that area.
Yeah.
In the time frame that I needed to.
So I mean, what's maybe interesting is this is actually less terrain than we've been playing on. So if you've watched any of our other streams, we would have all of these things plus 2 more forests. They would just normally be set up a little bit differently. So kind of 3 of the crates would be well, I mean, actually it's pretty similar. So we have one of these cliff looking hill things, one of the L line of sight blockers, and then this middle here would actually be stacked 3 crates high.
Yep.
And where these side crates are, we've been playing forests, right?
Yep.
And so I had some comments from people playing, like our local tournaments, that maybe that was a little bit much. So this felt like less terrain to me. It felt more open to me, which I thought was going to be an advantage for you. But the mobility restrictions maybe offset that a bit.
Because like if you don't fly, you can't get over those because they're not breachable or anything like that either. So it's just, you have to go around it. And when your base is 3 inches wide, you just can't get through there.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I do have 3 things that fly in this list, but unfortunately 3 things that fly is not enough. And like these defilers, for example, even with a 3-inch thing, they're still 5 inches across. They just can't move through ridiculously dense terrain.
Yeah. Well, so the lack of fly stuff in your list was part of why I thought move blocking was going to be a successful strategy, right?
Yeah.
Because in the variation of this list that you took to the Dallas Open, right, where you had more flying drones, even if I had moved blocked your whole army, you still would have like 12 units or something that would maybe not 12, but you'd have a lot of units that could have just gone completely right over me. And I felt like a larger percentage of your stuff this time didn't fly, and so I was looking. It really didn't come up, but I was looking for opportunities to move block you with gaunts and just keep you away from my monsters.
Yep. And not to get too sidetracked, but here's a good example you can see, and just everything's too wide to get through certain areas, which you'll move 10 inches, that's like there and there. It just slows you down tremendously. So, but that was my own fault with where I moved them, because there was no reason for them to actually move up that far.
Yeah. So I don't know if you could tell. So I began the game down here with 20 Hormagaunts, and the Swarm Lord was somewhere right here. Don was coming down and clipping the angles of this terrain with his, I keep forgetting, Blight Haulers?
Yeah, my fitted Blight Haulers.
Blight Haulers to, shoot Meltas and Flamers and like all kinds of stuff down and kill all of these things. And so, to your defense, Don, I don't know that you can't really tell very well from the camera, but to clip this angle around the terrain, I do think you had to come pretty far to the left of this, pretty far deep, and to the left of the screen. And if you hadn't come down that far, I'm not sure that you would have been able to clear out all the stuff down here as effectively.
Yep. But that's one of those things that this was not necessarily something that needed to happen. And it basically ruined it for the rest of the game for me, with me going that far over. Whereas what I should have done was just left them alone, let them even try to come take this, but I should have gone this way to move down and be an actual threat. Yeah,
that could be. Yeah. So right around here in turn 3, so actually we missed it. So on turn 3, I've started bringing in my reserves, and you can see I brought in a lictor back here in the corner. At this point in the game, I've cleared out the Plague Burst Crawler. I've cleared out one of the Defilers. Typhus was back here, and I killed him. So what I'm doing at this point is shifting hard on the right side, which is exactly what Don wanted and was trying to get me to do. I think maybe I won on this side a little bit faster than you thought I would.
You did.
Okay. We missed. You can't really see it on the 20-minute recap, but this was actually fairly pivotal. I brought in some rippers in the top left, and had to re-roll the 9-inch charge to just deny this objective for a turn, and that ended up putting Don -5 points on the primary, and that's about half of the deficit of what the game ended up being, right? So that was a fairly pivotal role up there, actually.
So this turn is where my mind did a complete brain fart. So when I was looking at the points, I was not counting his deploy scramblers right here. And when I was actually moving everything around, I was like, well, I still have, he's only up by 7 points right now. So my While We Stand We Fight should jump way ahead of that, and all I need to do is hold these 3 objectives, and I'm golden. And that's what happens when you don't sleep appropriately and don't, just take the time to look at what the objectives are. Because like this, I moved everything back, which did not allow me to get engaged, did not allow me to actually threaten his army. And yeah, we even see like on his turn, he didn't need to do like anything. He just moved up a little bit and just prepared to basically get engaged points.
Yeah, my turn 4, I literally did nothing. I moved my Neurothrope up a little bit farther because I was kind of anticipating some smites on turn 5. I moved my Exocrine up, anticipating some action on turn 5, and I was in my mind like trying to weigh a trade-off. My Exocrine could have, if you noticed, he was here. He could have run around and hid behind this cliff, but then he would do nothing. If I brought him up, that would have opened up some opportunities for Don to move to the side and shoot him, or shoot some stuff over here. And that's exactly what he did, exactly what ended up happening. But I kind of hoped that the Exocrine would live, and that would give me a chance to retaliate. And if I can kill any of these Blight Hauler units, that's 5 While We Stand We Fight points that Don doesn't get. I had been holding my Hive Tyrant in reserve up here, anticipating that he would be able to come out and get me some final engage points. And it turned out I could move him down here and use his psychic powers to contribute to getting rid of some Blight Haulers. And so these are, I agree with you, Don. These are all things that I was able to do on turn 5, because turn 4, you played very conservatively. You basically just hid everything.
Yeah.
And you were just hanging out, waiting for the final score to happen. And I was thinking the same way that you were. I was thinking that I was down, and that it was on me to come back. And it turns out that we just weren't keeping track of the score well enough, and it was the opposite case.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and like something else to keep in mind. So it was a little hard to see the While We Stand with 5 points that he was able to get that turn. I did have 1 CP to basically stop these guys from getting double shots against them, and that would also reduce this guy's number of shots. But I was playing from a hole, so my whole thing was if you did not kill him or kill those, then I would have to Overwatch and try to kill the Hive Tyrant if it charged in. So that's why I was holding on to 1 CP. Otherwise, if it was like a tournament where points truly didn't matter and it wasn't just win-loss, I would have probably spent that CP on Belching Fumes to reduce the number of shots he had by 1 for each dude.
Sure. Well, Don, it's been 20 minutes. Any final thoughts? What do you think was your biggest good decision during the game and your biggest mistake during the game?
So I didn't make a whole lot of really good decisions during the game. I did try to take your legs out from under you with your scoring units, but I kept leaving, a couple units here and there. But my biggest boo was just not actually taking the real time to look at the score and see what you were actually scoring.
It's hard though with like the fearless obtech units, right? Because you have to kill them to a man, and otherwise like the 1 or 2 models that are left are still useful to go out and deny things. Yeah. And the other thing that I found out about, like, you've played a lot more of Ninth than I have, but the new morale rules, like when you have 30 guys, if you kill 25 of them and 5 are left, there's probably going to be like 2 guys left who are just going to be an annoyance for the next turn.
Because
right?
That's basically what had happened for the most part. Like it wasn't a whole lot that I was, had to make you not roll checks on your guys that were fearless. It was I knocked your 30-man squad down to 5 dudes, and you still had 2 dudes left over to go run over and deploy scramblers or something like that.
Yeah. So as far as me, I think the biggest wrong thing that I did in the game was deploying Swarmlord down on the far left. There was no need for that. He should have been over on the far right where my Dimacharions and all my monsters were. I honestly don't know what I was thinking at the time. I think the best thing that I did was just not to give up, because after turn 1 and even into turn 2, things were looking pretty bleak.
They were.
Yeah, and I did not think anything was gonna go well.
Yeah.
But any final thoughts? Words, Don?
No, I like where you're going with this new list. I do think it is better than your Harlequins list by a lot.
Oh yeah.
Because it actually interacts without. I mean, it can take a punch. It can hold a board. I think it's actually faster than your Harlequins list.
Yeah.
So that's
shot.
Nice.
Well, the Harlequin bikes can go like, I don't know, like 48 inches or something crazy. But so I don't have that, but it is fast enough.
Yeah,
it's fast enough. And I'm enjoying it. I think I'm gonna keep going with it and see where it goes. So anyway, thank you everyone for listening. I appreciate it and appreciate your time. If you like what we're doing, the best way you can help us out is to subscribe and click the alert button so you'll be notified when we post new videos. And we're gonna keep doing what we're doing. So thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you all later.
Bye.